Everyone.
Morning.
It's 9:01, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jumoke Akintelo, and I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works, and Mr. Rudis is the clerk for this hearing. The hearing is being recorded, and there's a sign-in sheet right on the table to your left, and we ask that you should please sign in if you're interested in getting information about this hearing. So please go ahead and sign in if you haven't already done so. This is a public hearing, and it's been held to consider the protest filed in respect to the issuance of tentative approval for permit number 18WR-0195 XNet Systems, and the address is 1653 17th Avenue, and it's an application for personal wireless service facility permits. So my job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing and listen to your testimonies. This is to help our directors make a determination. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I'll just forward the findings from this hearing to help my director make a recommendation. When the director's recommendations are made, when the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them. Therefore, if you want to be notified, as I mentioned earlier, please go ahead and sign in. So the way the hearing works is the Public Works BSM will speak first, and then it would have the appellant, I think he's here in the room, speak next, and then anyone, the protesters will speak, and if there's public hearing after that, we would also take that. Okay? So it's Monday morning, so I'm a little juggled up this morning, so permit my... All right, so are you ready? Maybe we'll just wait a few minutes and have everyone settle in while you sign. We'll just give them a few minutes to sign up and settle in. It's permit number 18WR-0195, XNet Systems, and the address is 1653 17th Avenue. Bill, can you come up?
Good morning. My name is Leo Palacios, and I will give an overview of the wireless permitting process. The city has limited authority over personal wireless service facilities. Wireless facilities are regulated at the federal level with limited local control, allowing some oversight of design. All authority invested to the city regarding these facilities is restricted to Public Works Code Article 25 and Public Works Order 184504. The process includes review by San Francisco Public Works, the Planning Department, and the Health Department. If all departments recommend approval of the application, the city issues a tentative approval, and the applicant posts and mails this notice to any person owning property or living within 150 feet of the facility. There is a 20-day protest period, and if Public Works receives an objection to this notice, as we have for the application on today's agenda, Public Works convenes a hearing. We have provided the hearing officer, the Planning Department, and the Health Department with all the objections. Additionally, the applicant has responded to each protest. Public Works Code Article 25, Section 1513H, which I have here, provide all available grounds the city may lawfully use to deny a personal wireless service facility permit. The first ground is if the Health Department incorrectly determined that the application meets Article 25's health compliance standard. This would mean that the facility would not comply with the Federal Communication Commission's emissions guideline. The second ground is if the Planning Department incorrectly determined that the application meets the tier compatibility standards. This would mean that the facility would significantly detract from the defining characteristics of the adjacent neighborhood. Third ground does not apply to today's application since none of them are proposed adjacent to a city park or open space. The fourth and fifth grounds is if Article 25's requirement for obtaining a wireless permit are not being fulfilled, or that there is a proposed modification to the design and that modification will not comply with Article 25 standard. For all the applications on today's agenda, we believe the tentative approval was issued correctly. The Health Department found that all the applications meet Article 25's health standard. Under federal law, the city cannot deny an application for emission concerns if the facility is found to meet FCC guidelines. Additionally, the Planning Department found that all applications meet the tier standards and will not significantly detract from the defining characteristics of the adjacent neighborhoods. Finally, there is no evidence in Public Works possession that demonstrate that these applications will not comply with Article 25 and Order 184504 standards and requirements. We will be here if you have any questions. Also, I'd like to note, just when you fill in your email address, just please write very clearly so we'll be able to send you the information immediately. Thank you.
Thank you. So we received quite a few protest letters in response to this application. So may I have those appellants come up for 3 minutes? And please introduce yourself, state your name, and
Yes.
then
Hello, my name is Henry Ward.
Go
I'm a resident of the area that we're talking about where the supposed permit is going to be put in place. Anyhow, we have objections to that. Number one, we were not notified properly in the time frame that to prepare for any of this. We were not told anything about this. There were signs placed up on poles, and it rained. You couldn't even not read those. My neighbor fortunately pulled the paper out and was able to read it just recently. Secondly, the FCC ruling on the current broadcasting, there's one that has been put up on Noriega and 18th, and in that area there's a box that warns about the level of this being dangerous. Currently, we are broadcasting ionized radiation. It is being admitted at 1.5, 2.5, and 2.8 megahertz. However, the 5G, and this is scientifically proven, is going to be emitting in gigahertz, 30 plus gigahertz, which is 15,000 times stronger than the current emissions. There's scientific proof. It's inconclusive yet, but we beg to wait and see the findings of this research before it is implemented, and then we find out that it is, in fact, negative to health. We have a strong community that opposes this, and we will continue to do so. We also understand that there is a senator or a congressman right now in San Jose, and also in several other areas, Mill Valley, Hillsborough, Ross, and they have stopped this. And we would like to have a time to have full disclosure of what it took to make that happen so that we could go along those guidelines. There's a precedent that has been set. We feel that this technology is inhumane. Studies have shown that with this type of exposure to this type of frequency, it basically separates this bonding of cells, which causes cancer, and that is a fact. We also recognize that, it's a free country, and the people who want to go about planning to put something in, they're doing a job, and so, we appreciate that, but we don't want it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You still have 24 seconds. So there's a warning bell that goes off 30 seconds before your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, they have a count on the, thank you. So may I have the next protester speak? Hi. Good morning.
Thank you for meeting with us today. We appreciate it. My name is Misha Riedel. I live at 1647 17th Avenue, which is pretty much directly in front of the proposed location of this 5G antenna. So today I'm going to talk about 3 points. I'm going to talk about how these proposed antennas would damage a unique San Francisco icon. I'm going to talk about other Bay Area cities that are stopping this rush for 5G infrastructure. And I'm going to talk about the poor notification and the procedures from the telecom company. So firstly, the proposed location of this 5G antenna would directly impact one of the city's cultural icons, which is the 16th Avenue tiled stairs, which have become an international destination point in the city. TripAdvisor ranks the 16th Avenue steps. Out of 770 things to do in San Francisco, it's ranked as number 30. That's in the top 4% of everything to do in the city. Yelp reviews give the 16th Avenue stairs 5 stars. Reviewers comment on the lovely neighborhood to walk around in. A visitor from Hong Kong wrote, "You can see great views of San Francisco." Christy from Canada wrote, "As you walk up the stairs, you get a nice view of the city, particularly during sunset." Rave reviews of the stairs in the neighborhoods come from the UK, Australia, Poland, Ireland, Italy, and Japan, just to name a few of the countries and the states where people are visiting from. From our living room on 1647 17th Avenue, we watch hundreds of people walk along the street, climb the stairs, no matter what the weather, pose for pictures, and for what one of the reviewers calls the best view in San Francisco. So this antenna in the box, along with it, would ruin our view. The lamppost is directly in front of our living room. We will look out on the lamppost, which right now is a lovely old lamppost, and up to the 16th Avenue stairs and Grandview Park. Currently, there are beautiful old lampposts on the street. There are no wires. Our wires are in the back of the house, and there's nothing to impede the views or detract from the lovely old art and crafts homes on this street that date from the 1930s. In April, the California Supreme Court ruled unanimously that aesthetics alone are enough to justify the rejection of a new 5G infrastructure. San Francisco's attorney Dennis Herrera agreed. Other cities, as my husband said, are saying no and rejecting this rush to force 5G into neighborhoods. Mill Valley, San Anselmo, Ross, as well as Belgium, Italy, Germany, Switzerland are looking at. The congressman my husband mentioned is Anna Eshoo, who represents much of Silicon Valley. She's introduced Bill H.R. 530 to overturn these FCC regulations that curtail local control. I guess I'll stop there. Thank you.
So if you have a document you would like to submit
Yes.
as part of it, you could go ahead and give it to Nate. and then
Okay,
I can
great.
look at it.
Thank you. Would
Thank
you
you.
just like this copy, or should I email it?
It's entirely up to you, however
Okay.
you want to do that.
Okay,
So if
thank
you want to
you.
give it to him, fine. If you want to email it, that's fine as well.
Okay, all right. Let me make sure if it's clear in this
Okay.
format. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have the next protester speak?
Good morning. My name is Anastasia. I live on the same block. Thank you for meeting with us today. I just wanted to add to the previous commenters. about the size of the antenna that's going to be. So the size on the top of the lamppost, so they want to add antenna which is going to be covered by the shroud. And the shroud, right here in the plan, it says it's going to be 64 inches long. This is the size, this is my height. So it's going to be this size sitting on top of the lamppost. Plus, in addition, there's going to be a box enclosure, which is going to be 35 inches by 15 inches. So that's also a substantial size to be 17 feet off the ground. So it's not going to look pretty. And we don't want that, the ugly looking thing in our block. Just aesthetically looking, we don't want it there. And secondly, the FCC report that states that exposure levels are safe, that report is from 1996. At that time, they did not have 5G, and they did not even have 4G at that time. And they already had concerns. There is a document from the meeting in 1999 by FCC saying that that there are some concerns about exposure levels, and they were not proven safe at that time. And we can submit that later also. So that's it for me.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
My name is Maureen Maring, and I live at 1653 17th Avenue. And I would just like to request that this installation be canceled in front of our homes, my neighbors that are here. I'm really disturbed by the radio frequency that it's going to emit, because the pole is right in front, just not even 30 feet from our house, our front, all my neighbors' front windows. And there's more children on the block, and I've been reading over the years how electromagnetic frequency is dangerous, especially for young children, and then we say all people. So that's my main, that it's really too close. It's going to be right in front of our homes, and if they needed a location for it, I would suggest 19th Avenue, that's a boulevard, there's a meridian, and it wouldn't be that close to homes. I read in some literature like saying, or speaking, that it was 100 feet away, and if someone could come out and look, it is so close to our front windows and homes. So thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning. My name's Colin Lee. I live 2 doors down from Maureen. We are longtime residents, San Franciscans. I've lived on that block 45 years. My other neighbors here have been 20, and the lady in front who just spoke previously, she's been there for over 60 some odd years. She's lived there her whole life. We'd like to oppose this issue because in the first place, we were not consulted. I understand that anybody through FCC can come by and just apply for a permit and put up 5G, but as the neighborhood has changed over the years, we've seen a lot more. The older folks have passed on, and the newer families have come in with families. And most of these families have infant elementary school children. And I don't know what the long-term effects are of this or how it will affect, but these people that come here and change over to this neighborhood, they raise their children, and they're looking for a good neighborhood with a good school district, and evidently I'm under the assumption that they will stay for a long period of time. So having been in this neighborhood and being a lifetime San Franciscan, as some of us have been here, I'd like to find out a little more, if they can explain to us basically, or give me a guarantee that there's nothing going to happen 20 or 30 years down the line from here. So that's basically one of the reasons why I came today to oppose it. Also because not for myself so much, but as I said earlier, that there's a lot of younger families moving in on that block, and a lot of them have infant and elementary school children. So based on that, that's one of mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Protests?
Morning.
Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning. Thank you for your time this morning. I'm a resident and owner of a property on 17th Avenue, very close to the pole. My name is Edward Brajnikoff. I also assisted in collecting some of the signatures in our neighborhood. Mostly everybody that I spoke to was very grateful and had absolutely no idea what was going on, because this all was kind of slipped in underneath a PG&E gas pipe improvement program. The notices were sent out, what appears to, if they were even sent out to some residents, were sent out late, pretty much at the end of the deadline for any opposition. People were thanking me, saying, thank you for taking this upon yourself. And I said, we want a hearing. We want to know more. And I want you to understand that I'm not against technology. I work in a technology field. I want to tell you that a place for this isn't the residential areas. We have internet. We have wired internet. We don't need wireless internet where we live. This would be for a place where a shopping center, Tan for Rent, Ceremony, a bus station, an airport, where people could use super lightning high-speed internet wireless service, and then they could do their business, get on a train, get on a plane, and go wherever they're going to go. Not a place where people live 24/7 exposed to this stuff. We have young children in the neighborhood. We have children of all different ages. We have adults. We have older folks. We have all these different people who simply don't want this in our neighborhood. And almost everybody that in the middle of the afternoon, that anybody that was home does not want this in the neighborhood. It's going to drive property values down. People don't want to live next to this stuff. People were saying, oh, we bought into this block because of the fact that we have simple, quaint light poles, and it's simple. There's no wires in here. The wires come up through the backyard since they were put in 1931. It's nice. It's quiet, and we just like it simple. We just want to be left alone. The traffic has gotten horrible since 19th Avenue, and all of the traffic from the people, and it's going up to 17th Avenue, and all this stuff is increasing. What do we need wireless internet on our block for? We live there. What we're asking for is we're asking for the county of San Francisco to look at this and put in place an emergency order to stop this and review this in depth, so we could actually find out exactly what's going on. We understand it's a big moneymaker for companies, but it's not helping us as property owners, property taxpayers, and taxpayers in general. For we live here, and we don't want this. And that's all I have to say this morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You know, I just have to make this comment, and unfortunately, as a hearing officer, we don't change policies, but there are some steps, you know, whatever your concerns are, there are some steps you could take to make sure that this is heard where they can effect the changes. I can't make changes here. I can only go by what the code states. And every time I listen to it, I'm very sympathetic. But again, I have to make my recommendations based on what the current policies and the rules states. But I'm sure Leo can also speak to you about the steps you could take to bring this maybe to the Board of Supervisors, to where you can be heard and where the difference can be made. But unfortunately, it's not here in this room. I just wanted to be upfront and honest with you. And the considerations that I would look at would be the notices. Those are the things that are within my control, right? That did they post the notices when they were supposed to? What was planning department's ruling on it? Whether aesthetically pleasing or not, that's planning department that determines that. It's not me. So if planning department states that, yes, per their code, it does meet the planning regulation and they sign off on it, then I really can't offset that. So those are some of the constraints that we have. Article 25 is what we rule by. So, and I would ask one more, and then we'll take public comments. Do we have another protester that wants to speak? Thank you. And then when it's time for public comments, you can come up and speak additionally. Go
Good
ahead.
morning. My name is May. I'm living the same block of them, and that means 1917 Avenue. Actually, I didn't know that anything from them. Showed me the letter this morning. So my concerns, I don't want to have it in 17 Avenue for them.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we have someone from XNet? Can you please come up?
Hi, good morning. Thank
Good
you.
morning.
Joseph Kamisha with Exonet Systems. So we are in receipt of a number of protests, including all of the signatures that were collected by the resident that spoke earlier. We've reviewed all of the protests and have responded and uploaded our response to DPW's website. And I think what I'd like to do here, given the volume of responses that we received and the number of issues that have been touched on, is try to focus on, try to narrow them down to what the two primary concerns are. Leo Palacios from DPW posted the 5 criteria that are possible lawful reasons to dispute an application like this, 3 of which were not relevant. It's not in front of a park, such and such. So it's really just the first 2 that are relevant, and those are whether DPH, Department of Public Health, made its approval determination in error, and whether the Planning Department made its approval determination in error regarding aesthetic impact and things of that nature. So I'd just like to focus on those 2 things briefly and then try to circle back on a couple of the more specific questions that have come up this morning. So firstly, the Department of Public Health reviews all installations, all proposed installations. Primarily, they review the project plans and our third-party engineering analysis, which is done by a company called Hammett and Edison. They're based in Sonoma. Again, they are a third-party independent reviewer who we hire to tell us what this proposal would look like in terms of FCC compliance. Their report, which is included in our application, determined that the highest exposure level would be 2.5% of the FCC's limit. So that's 25 times below the FCC's maximum exposure limit. And the highest exposure level at the ground is less than 1% of the FCC's limit. So again, that's 100 times lower than the FCC's limit allows. So the Department of Public Health reviewed all of that information and determined that they recommended approval. They recommended that it did meet the San Francisco Public Health Compliance Standard and it met all FCC guidelines. I don't think there's any question that that approval was made correctly. Moving on to the visual impact question and whether the Planning Department reviewed and correctly determined that it should be approved, that it met the planning and zoning protected standards. We believe they did. The Planning Department, in its April 5th memo, specifically mentioned that it would not detract, it would not unreasonably affect, intrude upon, or diminish any identified city resource, and would not significantly detract from the character of the adjacent residential district, scenic vistas, or potential known historic buildings or districts. This is based on several years of collaboration with the Planning Department in trying to fine-tune and streamline our designs to get them as small, as unobtrusive as possible, which we feel like we've done. These types of installations have been installed all over San Francisco in all types of neighborhoods, including residential neighborhoods just like this one, and they have consistently been found to meet those compatibility standards by the Planning Department. I know my time is up. I expect you probably have more questions for me, so I'm happy to.
I have a few questions.
Would you like me to continue with what I had to say, or should I just take your questions?
If it's addressing what the protesters have said, I would, yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so give me just a moment to look through my notes here. Oh, okay, so one of the things that came up both in the protest and this morning was reference to an existing installation that's a block or a block and a half away on 18th and Moraga. That installation, unfortunately, I don't have a photo of, but it's a tall wood utility pole that has a lot of things going on. There's lots of utility, power lines, communication lines. It's the type of installation that we try to avoid where possible. So someone's commenting that, look, this thing over here is really big and we don't like the way it looks. Well, what we're proposing here is much smaller, much more streamlined, and these types of poles and installations are specifically what we try to do because they limit the visual impact, because they don't go on these huge utility poles where we have to install extra equipment. We have to install power meters and disconnect switches. Sometimes they result in large vertical extensions at the top of the pole because we have to meet all sorts of state law requirements. Public Utilities Code requirements. So those types of installations are specifically what the Planning Department asks us to avoid, and where we can, we try to do that. And in this case, we did find a light pole, a basic run-of-the-mill light pole that would allow us to install the most minimal installation that we can, which is what we've proposed here, and we believe that it was appropriately located and designed to meet all of the Planning Department's compatibility standards.
I have a follow-up question
sure.
on that Noriega one. Is this the same one you're talking about?
I
that
believe it's
has-
Moraga, not Noriega, but
Okay, Moraga.
feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. It's 18th and Moraga.
Moraga, okay.
Yeah.
So, but there's a warning sign on that pole.
Uh-huh.
That's what one of the protesters had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware of that warning sign, and can you speak to what the warning sign is about?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the sign says, but I can speak in general terms about signage that goes on these installations. Typically, the type of signage that is installed is it's a small 4-inch by 6-inch sign that says something to the effect of, within this area, exposure limits may be exceeded, something to that effect. And usually there's a distance written on it. It'll say 3 feet or 5 feet or something to that effect. So that's probably the signage that they're referring to. There's also typically signage that has a phone number on it that says, you can call this number if you need to be working in the vicinity of the antenna so that we can shut it down for you. So that's probably the signage that they're referring to, but because I'm not as familiar with that specific site, I don't know what the stay-away distance is on that sign. I can
I'll
only
look
tell
for
you
it.
in general terms, that's probably what they're referring to. There would be a similar sign on this one. In fact, it's in the project plans. The detail for that sign is on sheet D2. D is in dog. There's a notice signage detail that highlights what the sign would look like.
D2.
D2.
Does it
correct.
also have the wordings of the sign?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
So there's a sign like that. It may not be the exact sign, but there's a sign like that on every installation on light poles and utility poles in the rights-of-way.
Thank you.
Sure.
You have more? to address?
There's been a couple comments about this being a 5G installation. It's not, at least not right now. That's not what's been proposed. We know that all of our wireless partners, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, they're all pushing to get to 5G very soon. So we understand that that's coming. At the moment, this is not a 5G installation, but the technology may evolve and they may want to install the capability of doing 5G here, but that's not what this is at this moment. There was also a comment about megahertz versus gigahertz. Those terms are referring to a spectrum. So it's not an energy output. It's not we're going from 5 watts to 1,000 watts. It's not a power output. It's a part of the spectrum. So saying that we're in a 600 megahertz part of the spectrum versus a 2.5 gigahertz part of the spectrum is not an increase in energy. It's just a different part of the spectrum. So each individual site does have a different power capacity, and all of that is detailed in the Hammett-Nedison analysis that we've provided, and all of that goes into the Department of Public Health's review and findings regarding compliance with the public health standard and the FCC's guidelines. So I just wanted to note a couple of those things in response. And finally, about noticing, Public Works Code and DPW Order 184504 require that we both post notices in the vicinity, which is why you heard people talking about notices that were posted on poles, and mail notices to all owners and occupants within 150 feet of the proposed site, both of which we did. We uploaded affidavits to the DPW website confirming that both of those activities occurred on May 16th. So they were both posted and mailed on May 16th. And again, those affidavits are on the website and available. One last thing, sorry. The Planning Department, as I mentioned, reviewed and approved this application. And then at DPW's request, they actually re-reviewed it once the protests were received. And I think Leo could probably talk to you more about this. But the Planning Department followed up again with with a response to that request, and again confirmed that they did recommend approval of the application.
Okay. So for the record, you stated that this was not a 5G installation, and everyone is under the impression that it is. Can you state what this installation is, if it's not a 5G?
It's current technology. It's current 4G technology.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clarification.
To be perfectly honest, what matters is whether the installation meets the FCC's guidelines for human exposure to radio energy. What we call it is less relevant. What is relevant is whether it meets those guidelines. But yes, this is a 4G installation. It's a current technology installation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Leo, do you want to speak about the notices?
Hello, Leo Palacios. Yes, the applicant has uploaded the affidavits for mailing and posting, and we check on those to make sure they did a proper public notification. The reason why we sent the application to the planning department a second time is because one of the processors made a claim of view obstruction. So planning had to review the application for that claim, and they wrote a response. I uploaded it to the folder, which you could see that response also. And the response says that it does not qualify as view obstruction claim.
So that. So I have one more question.
Yes.
And this is just for my own education. So for the location, I know there was a mention that there is 19th Street and it's away from houses. So how is the location for this installation? How is it determined?
Oh, the location? Like,
Yeah.
how do they choose a pole?
How do they choose a particular location?
Oh, yeah, we don't know how they choose their location. Pretty much they do all their work before. Like, I'm pretty sure they just see what locations works best for their infrastructure. So our job is, once they find one location, that's when they start applying for a wireless facility.
Okay.
So we don't know why they chose that particular location.
But do you review the location as part of your tentative approval to say, well, it complies?
Oh,
it
yes,
meets-
for the one,
Okay.
yes, definitely.
Okay. So those were my questions, and I'll follow up with. Okay. Now for public comments. Do we have public comments? Public comments will be 2 minutes.
May I show you this notice? I took a picture
Can you
of it.
state your name?
Oh,
and
yeah, my name is
for the
Henry
record
Ward,
again?
of 1647.
You can put it on that, so that we all can see. Can you zoom in? Okay, so this is a T-Mobile, no, your phone is the T-Mobile, right? Or,
This is on Noriega Street,
okay.
in 18th. It does not state any distance.
May exceed, it doesn't state the distance,
Yeah,
okay.
it may exceed. And we're talking about a technology that could basically destroy human cells and cause tumors, regardless what anyone who is in partnership with this venture that's going to be 5G. It's a multi-billion-dollar venture. They're out for it. They know it's coming. They want it. They don't care about people's health. It's kind of like just moving that out, the equation out, and it's wrong.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comments?
May I show you the picture?
Yes, ma'am.
The-
Can you please state your name? Leo, can you lower the microphone for her, please?
Thank you. This shows the existing,
Ma'am, can you state your name for the record, please?
oh, yes. Oh, pardon me. I'm Maureen Maring, and I live at 1653 17th Avenue. Thank you. And this shows our homes and how close the pole is. And then where it's proposed, it shows where the wireless cells are going to be and the extra box. And that's directed right to our front of our homes. And as you can see, it's so close. And also, may I say, I've lived there all my life, our family, and we were not notified. I've been home there, and the postings went up on the poles first. And then a few days, well, it must have been about a week. I just happened to read it because I thought it was a note about PG&E's renovation of the street. And then I saw that it was something about a development for a cell satellite. And it wasn't until probably another 2 weeks that, and I live right where in back of the pole. So I personally, and I know my neighbors did not, because then I started asking them, did you get any notice about this? And then we read, and then we had a very short time, and then my neighbors went and asked, they collected about 35, 40 people that were asking for the cancellation of this pole. And for the selection of the pole, there's certainly many, many other poles that it could be set up on, not right in front of our homes. And thank you. Do you need me to leave this, or should I?
You could, if you want to. Thank you.
Want a copy of it, or?
I'm sure I could get a copy. Do you have a copy of that, Leo? Yes,
Thank you.
we have. Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comments?
My name is Edward Brashnikov. I wanted to say that originally, when this whole thing started to materialize, I did see a man in front of this light pole, this where the prospective antenna is going to go. Actually, it seems, according to the paperwork, it appears that there's two antennas, one on the very top and one 17 feet up. And they're going to put them on every light pole, not just one. And even though the gentleman here who works for the company says that it's not harmful, and it's whatever percentage of the bottom of the percentage of harmfulness, why would they put these signs up as a disclaimer to say that this area here may exceed something, something, something? Okay, so I tried to approach the fellow that had a computer backpack on, and when I said, "Excuse me, I'd like to speak to you for a moment," he acknowledged what I was doing. I was trying to get his attention, and then as I approached him, I said, "I'm talking to you," and he just shuffled off and at a kind of a very fast pace ran down the street and around the corner. And I thought it was strange. I thought, what is this guy doing? Is he like trying to hack into people's internet system, or what's going on? Why isn't this person just telling me, "Hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that"? He just avoided me and ran away, pretty much. I just find it very interesting that any company that wants to make money will pretty much say anything to put their thing in, their system in. I don't believe that the research company that they've employed really did this research, or they falsified it. I believe there's a lack of transparency, and there is definitely some sort of a falsity about this whole thing. We want clarity. We want to know why that this is going on. And I know these people are making a lot of money. And why are we the people that are going to be in place to have to live in the middle of it all? Thank you for your time
sir.
this morning.
Any other public comments?
Hi, my name's Colin Lee. I live at 1661, and I noticed that when they sent this notice out, ExtendNet has a carrier partner, which is Sprint. So it's pretty much public knowledge right now on Wall Street and all over that Sprint and T-Mobile are going to merge. And even though their intent right now is not 5G, everybody knows that AT&T, Verizon, and the only reason that Sprint and T-Mobile are merging is so they can compete with Sprint, with AT&T and Verizon, and 5G is the coming thing. If it isn't, it will be in the future, and we have no idea of what's going to happen in the future. So that was just for the record, okay?
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Thank you. I'd just like to, Amisha Riedel, 17th Avenue. I'd just like to say, in regards to the gentleman from XNet talking about, quote unquote, the warning signs on D2 and the analysis we provided, I received zero communication about this. I got nothing in the mail. I got nothing via email. I got no phone calls. I had no idea this project was happening, except for Eddie was teaching his daughter to ride a bike and happened to notice that thing posted on the pole, which we thought was related to the PG&E work that's going on. So in terms of what Eddie had to say about transparency, there has been a serious lack of transparency and forthcomingness in giving residents an opportunity to know what's going on, to inform ourselves, and to ask further questions and do further research in order to present our opinions in a timely manner. And that's my first comment. My second is that this would be directly outside our living room window, 20 feet away. And literally this warning sign will become a painting hanging in our window. And I take issue with the fact that that's not an aesthetic problem. I realize it's a very small aesthetic problem, but it is an aesthetic problem. And finally, on a bigger scale, this HR 530 that Congresswomen Anna Eshoo and Jackie Spear have submitted to overturn FCC regulations that are curtail local control. I'd just like to point out that this new FCC policy, which is a new policy, has removed federal oversight and removed safeguards that were outlined in the National Historic Preservation Act and the National Environmental Policy Act. And I think that, as Anastasia mentioned, that this dates back, this health issue, this evolution, or this document dates back to 1996. I think we need new information before we rush through something without giving local governments the opportunity to consider the local communities. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other, okay.
My name is Anastasia Brajnikov. I just wanted to mention about the comment, the statement of Extenet representative that we're going to be at 2.5% of the FCC's allowed exposure limit with these new antennas. And I just wanted to mention that the exposure was proven to be cumulative. So even if it's at 2.5% of the FCC's guidelines, it is still cumulative. So what are the long-term effects? There are peer-reviewed studies that outline concerns about proximity to this technology. Telecom workers themselves are told to avoid exposure. A professor of epidemiology at UCLA's School of Public Health says, "I don't think it's clear that there are health risks, but it's also not clear that there are no health risks." So if it's not clear, shouldn't we be on the side of caution and wait until there is proof of the long-term exposure? Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other public comments, we're going to have this hearing come to an end. And I want to thank you for your time. I thank you for the way you presented your issues here. And as I stated, unfortunately, I'm limited as to, I don't change policies. But I'm sure there are, Leo, do you have any information as to, we could send that to you via email of where you can influence, or I can't allow, I thought, I'm sorry, sir, we can't. Once the public comments is closed, it's closed. But if you have additional information, you can give it to Leo, and then we'll put it into consideration. I won't make my ruling today. I still have to look at other facts and review the information that I've heard, and then before I make my recommendations. All right? So in the absence of any other comments, this hearing has come to a close. Thank you so much for your time. Have a good day.